Thanks for doing. Okay.
Okay, howdy y'all. This is Development Team Meeting number 2. My name's Emily Strelsky.
Oh, I'm Brooklyn Tevis.
I'm Sterling Pianzik.
I'm Sarah Pavlock.
And I'm Quinn.
Okay, so question number 1 is when was the last time you were motivated to do something? I would say the last time I was motivated to do something was actually at the beginning of the summer. I wanted to be more consistent in the gym, and I have been making sure that I've been sticking to that. Um, I was motivated to complete this task, and I know that I can do it, and I can feel confident with myself, and knowing that if I want to, I can do it.
I kind of didn't do the last time I was motivated, just like my biggest motivation. And that was to go to college. I think that like my high school years were like really hard for me, and just going to school was difficult and just kind of a different experience than most people have. So um I was really motivated to go to college and like to get to A&M. And so that was like probably the biggest, like the time that I've been the most motivated to do something.
For me, I also kind of did something within the past year that I was motivated to because for me to be motivated, I have to be really passionate about it. And so within my job, I get to design the t-shirt that our participants get. And I actually came up with the design last May. So I came up with a design in 2025 for 2026. And it's really neat and it's actually really special to my family. And so it was just neat getting to work on that. And it'll probably be here in September. So excited to see that.
I put the last time I was motivated was at the beginning of the summer since I would be here staying in College Station doing summer classes. I wanted to be more consistent in the gym as well as Emily. I just knew I would be here, have a lot of extra free time, and wanted to keep my mind focused on something.
Um, as for me, I wrote down that the last time I remember being motivated was following up with my skincare routine. Just yeah, the whole moisturizing, toning, and stuff like that. I don't usually, I was just like sometimes I just get lazy. So I try to be consistent with my skincare routine, and I think I've been doing pretty well, I'll say. Yeah.
Okay, so for number two, it says select one of the options and answer for the group. Can you remember an experience in a youth program where you had, and like, I think it's just you feel you pick one of those. And I said built meaningful relationships. No, I've talked about this a lot, but for the after school program that I do, that's where I found like where my where I've worked with youth and I've found the most meaningful relationships. And honestly, I've just learned a lot from them, and just having that like relationship isn't just like a one-way street, it's both of y'all. And so that's why I chose that one.
For me, I also chose built meaningful relationships. So um, throughout high school, I was really active in the FFA, and I made lots of great mentors and friendships that I carried on with me to college. And now I get to work with those people professionally. So it's kind of a full circle moment getting to work with them. And even my mentors and teachers, they're kind of my peers now. And so just having those relationships from youth programs are pretty impactful.
I also put built meaningful relationships. Um, when I was in middle and high school, I participated in some summer youth programs. Um, There, I met a bunch of students and we bonded through a bunch of group activities. And we were all from schools around our area. And I've definitely stayed in touch with a lot of them from those.
As for me, for number two, I put practiced a valued skilled. I remember assisting our Sunday school teacher where I practiced communications and listening skills with children, and it allowed me to like I had to share like biblical stories and like discussions about faith and stuff like that. And I learned to deal with kids and like learn like what they like and what how they react to things and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely deepened my understanding of the importance of empathy and patience. Um, yeah.
I chose a voice in the program. So in the youth cheer camp that I mentioned in the introduction video, I worked like right alongside as like with my coaches. And they kind of like left me to do with a lot of the scheduling and making sure that things ran like smoothly. Um, I was the one that would talk to parents about what they learned and what to expect each day at the camp. Um, and I would also go in between like each grade level and talk to like the head people of those groups and make sure that everything is staying on task and all the things. So, yeah.
Okay, so the next question is share one thing you found interesting from the Bobo doll experiment. Expand your thoughts. For me, I found it interesting that whenever the kids watched the aggressive behaviors from the adults, not only did they imitate the behaviors, but their feelings like intensified. And I mean, children copied, but I never would have thought that it would have, like they would have acted worse than an adult would. So that really shocked me.
I agree. I found it interesting that the children were inclined to be aggressive towards the Bobo doll when they saw the adults do it, and the adults had no repercussions for it. Um, they definitely seemed to see that there was no punishment for the adults' actions, and they copied it. And like you said, it was a little bit more aggressive than when the adults did as well.
As for me, for the Bobo doll experiment, well, one of the things that I find fascinating was yeah, like you guys said, the fact that they just, when they saw the adult acting aggressively, they just started to imitate the same behavior. And then just how, whether it's positive or negative, like how a role model or an adult, what they do can impact children and like young peoples and how they develop and stuff like that. So I think that was very interesting.
Something that I found interesting with this experiment is the Bandora's social cognitive theory. Um, I found it interesting because this is something that like happens in your everyday life, but you don't really realize that's what you're doing. So I was saying like the attention, memory, imitation, and motivation. So it's like whenever you learn something like in your everyday life, you kind of go through those steps. You kind of start with the sorry, I lost my spot. So with the imitation, but in order to do that, you have to remember like what it was, and then for you to have that memory, you have to have that good attention span. So it's kind of just crazy how it just like cycles through and stuff. And I found that really interesting.
I just also thought it was interesting to see like the adults how they would act and then the kids imitating that. And just like being aware that kids look up to you so much as an adult and like they really do pay attention to what you're doing. And they, kind of want to be like you and like they imitate what you are doing. Even if they don't really know that that's what they're doing. But I also, there was a line in the video and it said, learning is a behavior and performing a behavior are completely different. Learning a behavior and performing a behavior are completely different things. And that was just like an interesting one line that I thought was cool of just like, you can learn something, but that doesn't mean that you have to perform it. And so some of those kids didn't actually do the behavior that they saw. But yeah.
For the next question, it says, what was your big takeaway from the day 16 lecture? For me, my big takeaway from the day 16 lecture was to not always make assumptions about disabled people and to not treat them as if they are any different. Um, I also became a lot more aware of accessibility areas, like such as the sidewalk that he was talking about. If something's blocking the sidewalk, I guess I've never really thought like that could be somebody's only way to get past something and it's covered by something that needs to be moved. So I'm definitely more aware of that now.
Yes, so for day 16 lecture, we talked about youth with disabilities. My main takeaway was probably the importance of making sure that everybody feel included, like inclusivity. I think that was the main understanding that I got from that because it's always important to make sure that everyone f feels like they're a part of something and not feel left out.
One of the big takeaways from the day 16 lecture was also to not assume just because you think that you're helping somebody, but they may take that either in the wrong way. So you don't need to, you shouldn't like assume on how to do it or what you think is correct. Um, as he said, like in the lecture, people with disabilities have lived with them most of their life, and they've learned how to like adapt and overcome any situations without needing assistance. So, yeah, biggest takeaway would definitely be to not assume.
That's also what I kind of said. I think that also one of the big takeaways was just the like etiquette with people with disabilities. I think that it can be sometimes easy to um, not intentionally, but unintentionally look down upon and like, baby talk or just do certain things that you wouldn't treat someone else that same age or that same gender or whatever it is. And so just like being aware and being like, okay, they're an adult and an adult with disability is still an adult and you still need to treat them like that. That was like one of my biggest things that I took away from that video.
So after watching the day 16 lecture, like some of y'all, I also took back about like not separating those with disabilities into their own group from the rest of the group, and that the group activities should be inclusive, whether or not somebody has a disability or not, and to not single them out in a crowd. But not only is it important in program development, but even like in the professional field at work, doing stuff like that. Whether it's a guest or a customer coming through, not singling them out, like treat them like any other customer that we're to walk through.
Sorry. So the next question, question number 5, it says reflecting on day 15 activity, had was what was the most surprising aspect of the simulation placement for you, and how has this experience changed your understanding of poverty and its effects on families and youth? Um, for that one, I put in the placement simulation, I was very surprised by how quickly financial difficulties can lead to serious problems. For example, like I was missing just one payment and like suddenly it snowballed into a crisis and it affects everything, like a housing and like other necessary sources like food. And it really opened my eyes to like the harsh reality that how poverty can impact families and youth, um, which opened my eye to how important support systems for communities like that.
Um, some of the like, most surprising aspects was whenever I first started the assignment, I knew it was going to be difficult, but I kind of thought I was going to be able to like know what to say, when to save it, that kind of thing. And then like going through it was like all these different things being thrown at you having to pay for, like either it being like an accident or like just unexpected bills. So since all these unexpected payments had to be made, there wasn't time for really enjoyment outside of work. And I learned that there's such like a huge percentage of the population that has to sacrifice those kind of things. And even though they don't know, or like, even though like others don't know that they have to do that. So, yeah.
I think that one of the like most surprising things was honestly just how stressful it was. Like in the like 10 minutes it took me, I was like my heart rate went up and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have to make these really important decisions." But also it like didn't affect just me and it affected my family, and I think that was like honestly one of the hardest parts was like choosing between myself and my children. And like I chose my child most of the time, but like, how often can you actually do that? And like, just the consequences that that can be. And I just like, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine living in that like every single day and just the stress that that like builds up. So that was probably like the most, like, the thing that most changed my understanding of it.
For me, so I kind of did a different outlook on answering this question. So, kind of towards the end of the simulation, it talked about how many kids actually choose to go hungry at school, and like not even punching in their lunch code. I don't know how it is every school, but because of the free and reduced lunch and being embarrassed by it, and that made me really sad because when I went to school, we had a lot of students that were on free and reduced lunch, but nobody made anybody feel bad about it. Like bullying wasn't really a thing in my school, and so it just shocked me that kids were making fun of kids that their circumstances are completely out of their control. And doing the simulation, you think that you're picking the best secure job and you're like, okay, nothing's going to happen, but it's like one thing after another and you're just trying to make it to the end of the month. And so it really just opened my eyes that when we're around kids and like even raising kids, just reminding them to just be kind to everybody because you don't know what they're walking through.
I agree. The most surprising aspect, I think, was how quickly things could go wrong. I would think I was doing well with my money, and then all of a sudden my kid would be sick and my car would be broken and rent would be due the same day. And it was just a lot to manage. So it definitely opened my eyes and made me just think you should think about what everybody around you is going through and just be kind to everyone.
For the next question, it was provide two aha moments from the history of youth development lecture. Also, give me a brief overview of the from the teenage trailer. What are your thoughts about this film? So two of the aha moments that I had going through the lecture were since during this time people were mainly only worried about like working and getting an extra income. And then when their kids would work, that's also even more of an extra income. So parents would have their kids work. In that case, their youth was like shortened by a lot, and people had a lot of different perceptions of parenting, either it being frowned upon or how they're parenting, or others agreeing that you have to work to have income and the income is going to help the family overall. Um, the second one was seeing that change during that time as in no children in the workforce and create more of an extended education of the youth. I also started to make like activities for the youth that isn't just working. Um, and they started to make laws like labor laws, juvenile curfews, courts, and stuff like that. And then when after watching the trailer, I found that it seemed like a very like inspirational movie. It was showing that kids should still be kids, even though it was hard and a serious time. They wanted to fight for their future and what they believed in. They wanted to be able to enjoy their youth rather than growing out of that stage so quickly. They brought so much. They brought so much to the time, as in movies, music, just stuff like that. Um, they want to become the model, like for the youth, even like in the future.
I just said that like honestly, the whole lecture was kind of a big aha moment, just realizing the difference in like the time and how much growth or youth has grown and the change of it. Of how like honestly there didn't used to be like a childhood almost. It was like, okay, you're born and you work and you like have this responsibility. and just seeing like they didn't have much of, the fun times and the games and the, sports and hobbies and things like that that we have now. And just seeing like also how much difference like your social class can change how you grew up, and then also like how these laws changed, so like the child working laws and stuff like that, how much that changed their childhoods and stuff like that. And then also through the film, I just saw, yeah, of how much like these kids just wanted to be kids, and that even though that those being a kid isn't perfect, it's so important for your development. And doing those things is how you learn and grow and how you like be yourself.
So after watching the trailer, it kind of shocked me that it talked or the lecture talked about backyards being too valuable for children to go and play in. And we're in such a day and age now where we're like, kids need to go outside more. And it's crazy to think that there was a time that they didn't even want their kids to play out in the yard. And so it's just crazy how we've evolved, and especially whenever they decided that how you raise your children is a personal responsibility. And so that was pretty eye-opening. But then the trailer, like you said, Brooklyn, we went from where kids should be kids, and then at one point we were like, now you have to work and help out around the house. You need to go and serve our country. And we kind of robbed that from kids. And so we've come so far since then. I mean, yes, students still work now, but they're still able to have a little bit of a childhood if they're, I get, what am I trying to say? Like their situations allow.
What stuck out to me from the lecture is that I realized that youth didn't have much of a childhood before there was a Reformation. There wasn't much focus on allowing them to be children and helping with their development. It also stuck out to me that the rules and regulations were put into effect relatively not that long ago. Like it was a decent while ago, but not long enough. So I thought that maybe we're probably still learning about youth development right now, since it hasn't been that long since these were put into effect. And with the trailer, it talked about how children went right into being adults. They didn't have much of teenage years or even childhood years, and it emphasizes the importance of teenagers and their development because they are the future of our world.
As for question number 6, for what I realized from the history of youth development lecture was that how kids um what I find like kind of sad, to be honest, was like how they had a hard time finding places to like play. Like they didn't have like a much of like that they would have to like play on the street and stuff. Like I find that like very like sad, but and how, the society back then focused on an industry and profit instead of creating like a safe environment for youth. And another important one was like how society viewed teenagers back then. Like it was like as if they were viewed as more of like a instead of teenager, they were more viewed as like small adults, mostly like small adults. They had to do a lot of things that adults do at such young age. And from what I gathered from the film teenage trailer, it was shows the struggle, the dreams, and the identities that like really shaped like who they are, what they experience and stuff. It portrays like I think what they had to go through, like how societal expectation they had and how they try to meet them and stuff. So it really encouraged me to think better for like our future and like our youth for the future.
Um, I think, okay, so number 7, the antisocial quiz was a bit different. I had each of you create a detailed plan to work towards your goal. Please update the group on your goal and what your progress has been. So my goal was to read my Bible every day for at least 30 minutes, and I honestly oh, sorry, have not been doing the best of job at that, to be completely honest with y'all. I definitely have some days, but I definitely fall short sometimes and just um being tired, and I have a full day's worth of work, and there's always going to be excuses for that. But honestly, I'm really glad that this question was in here, just like reminding me of my goal, and to hopefully like just put myself back on track.
So for me, my goal this summer that I chose was to finish both of my classes so I can graduate in August. And so really I just have this group meeting and 2 papers, and then I am done with school. And I actually applied for graduation last night and scheduled my defense today. So we're on the up and up.
Um, my goal was to improve my studying skills and content intake. I said I was going to sit in my room with no distractions for 2 hours and just go over everything I had for my summer classes. And I did do that. So far, it's gone well. I don't know how well I'll keep up with that, but it is working.
Is she frozen on y'all's? No. Good. Okay. So moving on to question 8. Um, so thinking of through the lens of the youth development.
Wait,
Oh wait, Quinn, did you go?
Sorry,
me or
I haven't went yet.
Oh,
and
okay.
neither of us have gone. No, that's okay. You're good.
Erase that from the memory.
Jacob? Okay, goal update. My personal goal I said earlier was like working out regularly and eating healthier. And I've started workout routine. That's pretty easy. I would say working out is not the hard part for me. It's mostly the eating and like meeting my protein goals. That's the hard part. So yeah, I think I'm doing a good job as of right now. Trying not to skip anything, like any meals or anything like that. So yeah, I'd say it's very going good.
My goal is kind of the same as what I was saying earlier about like the working on and stuff and just staying consistent. So I was just waiting to get up early, like every day, and get to the gym before literally my entire town goes there. Um, and after that, I'll like call my parents, have a little like chat with them or whatever, kind of for accountability. And so far, I've been staying consistent and doing those things, so it's been going good.
Okay, now question 8. Oopsies. Okay, so thinking from the lens of a youth development program leader, what takeaways can you share from the 2 required podcasts that Dr. Nelson had us listen to? In other words, how would you take this information and apply it to the following? Selection of youth leaders, which is from the Powerball Revolution, and providing the best practices to parents, program managers, or other decision makers, which is from the Cautionary Tales. So, really, from the selection of youth leaders, the kids were pretty excited whenever they kind of had the power to choose who they wanted to represent them. And so, just kind of by doing this, is that they're able to learn by doing and not just reading about all of that. And I think that also goes into it kind of leads into the second podcast of how can we provide the best practices to parents and program managers or other decision makers, is that they kind of have to get out in the field and do the work, because I mean, I went to school and I took a lot of classes, but that it didn't fully prepare me for the job I did now. I had to learn a lot of it by kind of drinking out of a fire hose. And so I think they both kind of relate to one another.
For the selection of youth leaders for the Powerball Revolution, I put in the Powerball Revolution podcast, there was an experiment within the school to see how satisfied they were with a supposedly perfect election system. Um, it was actually found that there was dissatisfaction with the normal way of elections, and in the podcast, they came up with the lottery system. It was found to be more fair and more um, representing of the leadership. I think this can be applied to selection of youth leaders by, of course, first making sure that they're qualified and then using the lottery technique to get a more diverse selection and give a more fair chance. And then for providing the best practices to parents, program managers, or other decision makers, the cautionary tales. The podcast talked about being aware of your biases when you are leading and challenging yourself to understand why you think in certain ways and to try and think of a perspective that reduces harm. Um, Ask about the evidence and treat things as testable beliefs and make sure it's okay and you're available to change your mind or your opinions.
As for the podcast that I got from Dr. Nelson podcast would be the Powerball Revolution. I've learned that like selecting like when you, the fact that we're selecting youth leaders, it should go beyond just the qualifications. Like they should the qualities like we should look for more than just qualifications as in like characteristic, but also what they do, like their passion and resilience. And as for cautionary tales, I think it emphasizes how adults with best practices can empower youth to like to um yeah, I think that's what I wrote.
Okay, for the selection of youth leaders, the youth they did like the lottery type thing, and whenever they like went back and asked, "Did you like this way better?" They didn't prefer the old way, I guess. With like the speeches and the campaign and stuff. Um, a lot of the times the election type route, they push a lot of people away and kind of discourage them from being in it and like them being engaged with it. When you have a selection like this, it's new for people, like different groups of people meeting, because sometimes whenever people run for like an election, it's kind of the same group of people, or like as they said in the podcast, it's like a group of friends. Um, so it's getting to have people get to know each other better and then having different thoughts kind of work together as well. Um, Also in the podcast, there was this teacher who kind of said under his breath that that guy wouldn't work best for like the council, and he ended up being like one of the best people to be in this council. And so sometimes you don't really know how well they will work with others until like they're in it and they actually end up doing amazing. Um, for providing the best practice to parents, program managers, or other decision makers, I agree. It's kind of like going out and just seeing how it is. Um, so a lot of things like they brought attention to people by like talking to them and kind of understanding their stories and kind of letting them reflect on their own stories in a sense. So I agree. It's just kind of going out there and kind of making conversation with them and getting to know people better.
So for the Powerball Revolution podcast, my kind of like just biggest takeaway from this podcast was just that you learn from experience. And there are some things that you just can't learn from reading a textbook. There are things that you need to learn out in the field, and just actually have hands-on experience with, especially with youth. I think that that is another thing is There are kids and there are a lot of different kind of kids, and you are going to be put in situations where there are just going to be a lot of different ways that you can handle it. There's not like a right and a wrong way. And therefore, like textbooks can't really tell you exactly what to do. And there's also just so many situations. And then for the cautionary tales one, I just said focusing on the facts doesn't change someone's belief. And so a lot of the times it takes personal experiences and knowing people and just being around people that you might have already formed an opinion about or have this belief that this is should be the certain way that you should do things, but then actually being put in that place and being around those people, forming relationships and stuff. Um, like that is where your beliefs change most of the time, at least. And so I just thought that was interesting, especially just listening to them talk about that.
All right, for question 9, it says to go through everyone's responses to the day 23 worksheet. So I'll go ahead and share that. All right, let me know if y'all can see that. Okay. Do y'all want me to just go through all the answers, or I'm not sure what the best way to do this would be.
I don't really know what we're supposed to like. I think that for the most part, we had all the same answers.
Yeah, I guess I'll just scroll through and we can see if we see any different answers pop out for us. Um, yeah, so youth need nourishing, adults must be intentional and skilled. Um, essential elements in order for youth to thrive. Positive relationships institute feelings of belonging.
Mhm.
Youth do not fear physical or emotional harm. Um, the likelihood of engaging youth who are not comfortable. Youth members encourage, provide many forms of recognition. The engaged learner, and then lottery system. The development of mastery is a process, planned developmentally. Okay, so let's see. Do y'all think there's any other answers that stick out that maybe we didn't get? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and scroll through all of it. So, all right, it looks like we all got them.
Um, so it's the last one. We're at the last one, I believe. Dr. Nelson's Day 24 catch-all lecture covered numerous discussion points. I want you to share one talking point with the group. Create one question to share using any one of my question stems below to help guide your discussion. You need to have your own question ready to share with your group. For note submissions, you need to answer your own question. The question that I came up with was how can we make it easier for young people to accept feedback and learn from their mistakes? So, do I answer first or do you guys answer?
I'm not sure.
I can go ahead and answer like what I put on there.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, I said when giving feedback, like we should focus on what they did well and like what they can improve on, and to make sure that your comments are in a positive way and not sounds like it's like you're criticizing them, like not sounding like you're trying to disrespect them or anything like, but like yeah. And I think we also have to show patience to let them learn from their mistake, because they will not learn their mistake right away. It will take people longer or shorter times for them to realize, and that like it's learning takes time, and that making mistake is okay, and that will promote um a growth mindset for youth.
Okay, so do I also answer that question, or do I read my question and answer that one? What do we think?
I took it as we share our question and answer our question, but I also
I agree.
know. Okay.
Okay. Okay. That's what I kind of assumed. I just want to make sure. So the question that I created, I guess, was what is the difference between eustress and distress? The difference between the two is that eustress is like a positive stress. It's kind of like a motivating type of thing. Short term is perceived as like within like our abilities. If we like feel like excited about something, and like we would just kind of want, or we are eager to like accomplish it. Whatever it is. Distress is more of like a negative stress. It can cause, just you to have like anxiety and just kind of like a spiraling feeling like in your chest or something like that. Feels unpleasant. Sometimes it kind of decreases like how you're acting with others or like just your performance in school or social life, work life, whatever it is.
Um, my question that I came up with was, what do you think would happen if the brain developed from front to back instead of from back to front, especially in like the teenagers? Because I have a teenage brother right now, and it's very evident that his brain is developing back to front because wow. But I think it'd just be really interesting to see how, a teenager would behave if their logical brain developed before their emotional brain. And I think that there would be a lot less impulsive decisions made and I mean, obviously a lot more logical decisions, but I think that would just be so interesting and like, I don't know, I would just be very interested to see how that would work. But that was kind of my question I came up with.
So, my question was, how could your environment affect your physical wellness? And so I just said that I think your environment has a direct impact on it because let's say you're in a super stressful environment, you're probably going to be sick a lot. You're going to be stressed out, not getting any sleep. And so I think that has a direct correlation on how well you thrive and especially learn and do well in school. And so if they have a great home life, great home environment, they're going to do really well in school. And so I just think that it can have a really positive or really negative impact on it.
Mine is very similar to yours. I put, how does a work or school environment affect your mental health? So I said doing something or participating in something that aligns with your values and interests, surrounded by people who support you and help you, is key to a healthy work or school environment. I think without these aspects, there's a lot of dissatisfaction, and that can lead like to a loss of purpose in your own life or satisfaction in your own life. So, like you said, it could be super good or super bad depending on what the environment is.
So sorry, that was like a long pause. For like the mentorship and stuff, do we also like read off and answer those? Like I don't know if I explained that well.
Um, I guess we can. Yeah, they were on there, so I'm sure we can answer them.
Okay. Everybody said their last question, correct? Okay, just want to make sure. So mentorship, how might a mentor effectively change the mindset of a mentee who is resistant to feedback? So they can change the resistant mindset by creating like a relationship. So they don't think that it's just somebody telling them what to do, not like kind of like a barking at them in a sense. And sometimes whenever you do that, people will just like, or like youth just like, oh, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it, that kind of thing. Um, so just whenever they create like a relationship with a mentor and they know that the mentor truly cares about them, I think that'll help their mindset a lot. Bless you.
I agree with you, Emily. That's kind of what I said too. I think just like, yeah, creating a relationship with a child, especially, just realizing that you really care about them, and like them being able to feel that, they're going to be a lot more receptive to like the advice that you give them. Um, and I think also just having a safe and trusting environment. If they're not comfortable in their environment, they're also not gonna really like the things that you're saying to them or the feedback that they're getting. Just being able to be comfortable and be in a trusting space, I think is just one of the most important things.
Yeah, just kind of agreeing with y'all on the mentor. A lot of times in churches, they have mentor programs, and that's really beneficial, like for your Christianity and just like your relationship with God. And so I think it's just like that in life. I grew up looking up towards my parents' students, and their positive impact on me wants to have that kind of impact on children as well. And so I think just having that positive influence really helps promote um, kids' lives.
I agree as well. I said I think a good way to change their mind and have them open to listening to you is asking them why they're feeling that way and why they're thinking like that. It's best to avoid being super criticizing of them, as this will discourage them and just make them feel safe, heard, and supported. And creating that relationship with them may make them more open to listening or wanting to change.
Um, I put that mentor can help by building trust. Like if a person trust, if the child or like the youth trusts the mentor, I believe there will be more connection to a point where the person feels safe enough to and comfortable enough to actually know that this is honest and that it's not uh it's for their own benefit, stuff like that.
Okay, for the next one, the self-help tip or health tips. How can encouraging self-help practices into daily routines alter ability to lead others? I just said that like once when a leader takes care of themselves, it's evident to the kids as well. And they're just better equipped to support um the people that they lead. And so, if you're not in a great mindset, if you're not um taking care of yourself first, then how can you give to others? Um, I think that just like, yeah, I think that I'm like trying to think of more how to expand on that, but just if you aren't taking care of yourself, if you are um, just not well and not doing things for yourself, it's evident to the kids and it's evident that you won't be able to give to others if you're not giving to yourself. If that makes sense. But yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of to expand on that, if you're not eating healthy, you can't even be around the kids to even have a positive impact in their life. Um, and so, you know, when you're healthy, you're happy. And so if you're wanting to just, promote happiness and positive attitudes in the kids' lives, just by promoting healthy lifestyles, that just goes a long ways.
Going along with what y'all said as well, it's hard to be a successful leader and effective leader when you don't feel good about yourself. Being healthy, confident, and focused is important when it comes to being a leader, and having a good self-image and good health reflects a lot on how you lead.
Yeah, I put something similar with Sarah. I agree with her on that one. I do believe that self health practices is very crucial, especially for leaders, because one, if you're healthy and you have a healthy mindset physically and mentally, you make better decisions, better choices, and you just do better in everything. So I think that's really important.
Mine's very similar to yours. I said that whenever you have self-health, it creates a better mindset and you feel better about yourself mentally and physically. Whenever you're healthier, like with your mental health, you have more of like a clear mind and you can make like better and good decisions either for yourself or for like your team and if you're being a leader and stuff like that.
So the next one, another self-help tip. What role do self-help health tips play in reshaping one's mindset towards stress management and work and school life balance and leadership roles? Um, just kind of stemming off of the last one, just speaking positivity into your life does the mind wonders. I know for me, when we're going 24 days into the fair, I have to turn on the Snoop Dogg Words of Affirmation song. And, like when you get in stressful situations, like just remind yourself that I can do this, I am strong, and it's going to be fine, and teaching kids from a young age that they can do hard things and just the stress is just a small glimpse of it will be beneficial in the long run.
I agree. I think understanding your self-health and be able to manage your own stress helps you to take control of the situations around you. Understanding your own health helps you be able to help others as well. If you don't know how to help yourself, it's not really you may not be able to help those around you. And taking care of yourself as well helps you to perform better.
So sorry, I'm so confused. Are we on the leadership rules?
Yes, yes. Okay, I
Okay,
think
okay.
that's my question. Um,
Okay.
what are the potential benefits and challenges of selecting leaders based on their ability to challenge the status quo rather than the traditional qualifications? And I put having a leader willing to challenge the status quo encourages innovation and change, as well as being more represent, representative of the people that they lead. I believe that they may listen to those more around them, and some of the challenge that can come with that are that they might have more resistance from the people that are used to the regular status quo and don't really want that change.
I just want to say really quick, I didn't get to do the self-help tips. I didn't know. Were you able to go? No? Okay.
No, I
I
wasn't.
just, okay.
Oh,
I just
sorry.
hop back. No,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
No,
okay.
you're good. You're
It
good.
gets really confusing with all this. I just wanted to like make sure yeah. Quinn, were you able to go?
This self-care tips.
There was a self-help tip. This one self-help tip. It says, what role do self-help tips play in reshaping one's mindset towards stress management in leadership goals and like work and school life balance?
Yeah, yes. I think I went. I believe.
Okay, okay, okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay. What I said is this self-help tips play an important role because when you try to better yourself, you then want others to know that they can do the same thing. Once you start to work on yourself, the mentality for work and school becomes more of like a positive outlook rather than like, oh, I have to go do this, like you're like dreading it. It helps you enjoy the little things that you get to do. It helps with stress management too because you don't overthink things because you know that you'll like have peace of mind that it'll always work out.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't think I went for that one. Yeah, I agree with you. Like for self-help tips, you do have to stay, like make sure that you have the tools or like the necessary stuff to stay calm and be able to manage your time because I feel like your time is really important too when it comes to managing your mental and stuff like that.
Do you want me to go and answer that question? Do you want to go and answer? Should I just answer that one too? Okay. Sorry, I was confused. Um, for this one, I also agree with what y'all said. I think that just like putting yourself first, and being able to, um, be well and you're just once your mindset as well, once you have a good mindset towards all the different things, especially with if you're going into working with children, it's important to like um, have a good mindset and you're going to be like having a lot of stressful situations and there's going to be challenges and things that are just going to come up every single day. And so I think that if you have a good mindset and you are prioritizing yourself, then you're able to have clarity and like focus on those things, especially when those things are going to come up when you least expect it. And so you're just going to have, you don't want to take out your frustration on the kids or whatever it is, like just being able to make sure that your home life, the things that you're doing by yourself are beneficial to you.
Excuse me. As for leadership role, I think that's where we are.
Yes. So I went
Um,
way before, sorry. So I guess it would be your turn.
okay. So I think you do, yeah, like I agree with Sarah. You do need a leader who challenge the status quo and can lead with new ideas and not stay in um traditional ways is the benefits is that it can so as time pass and there are new things that develop and you can't stay the traditional way sometimes because and so there might be people that resist these changes and prefer to stay like the old ways and so I think it's necessary for them to also they have like the support. Like if they're gonna have an idea to change something, it has to be like effective and it has to be something that actually can be put into action and like practical experience as well.
Um, I said some benefits that, uh, sorry, I just think I typed that wrong. Some benefits to like challenge the status quo is they're kind of reaching for like a higher goal, and in that sense, they're kind of thinking outside the box, which sometimes brings you like an even like brighter idea that honestly you thought you could never think of. Um, Another benefit is that they can be confident within themselves and their team because they know what they're capable of doing, and it's not like the usual, but they know that they can achieve it even with like the higher standard. Um, a challenge could be that people don't feel comfortable with it because they're used to it, and some people don't like change. But I think I think it's really interesting and beneficial to uh, kind of challenge the status quo.
I basically kind of said what y'all said. Just being able to challenge that, you just bring so much, just different ideas and um, things that, sometimes people are so focused on their specific thing that they're, studying or their specific thing that they're working on that it's hard to see some of other um, the other things that you can use. And just sometimes it's like, oh my goodness, that was so simple and easy. I just needed an outside opinion. I need an outside view. Um, and just like some new and fresh ideas are just important in order to like change the systems.
Yeah, I pretty much said the same thing as y'all. When you go in and change the status quo on things, it's fresh energy and new ideas and just probably things that somebody probably didn't think about. But some of the problems with that, it's gonna rub some people the wrong way because that's what they're used to. But you hire people to help bring in new ideas, and so it's kind of one of those. If you want to grow, you're gonna have to go against the grain a little bit.
On to the next question. Podcast. How can listening to a podcast about leadership and mentorship change how someone approaches these roles? Um, so I put listening to podcasts can really open up new ideas about leadership and mentorship in general. It can give them like more perspective, like different perspective, and like from maybe like hearing real life stories of people that went through the same thing, or like people with the same stories. That can or like they can maybe gain like tips on how they can overcome challenges that they face on a daily basis, and stuff like that. And like it can help them like reflect on themselves and their own actions and how they might do better in the future.
I said when you listen to podcasts, you get another look on how people lead, kind of what they have experienced and see what works for them, what doesn't work, or how they overcame certain situations and challenges that could be similar to what you're going through. Having other feedback and like options on how to be a leader helps you because you can learn and better yourself, and that will eventually better your team.
Yeah, I also agree with what y'all are saying. I kind of said something similar. And just like helping, it's always good to hear someone else's opinion and like their voice and what works for them. I think about like teachers and how it's, classrooms are so different. And so hearing what other teachers like tips that they have and like what works for them and their youth and like their students. I think that's just kind of what I thought of when listening to this of like, okay, I need to listen to how, people deal with this problem or whatever it is. It's just good to talk to other people and listen to other people to hear what works for them and like just different things that you can do.
Yeah, I agree with y'all on it. Just listening to podcasts gives you different tools on how to handle certain situations, um, especially when you're leading a group of people or you're even just in a certain environment. One podcast that comes to mind is Mel Robbins' podcast. I'm sure you're all familiar with the let them theory, but by listening to those podcasts, everybody's able to kind of relate to them, and implement them in their own lives. And so I think that all around they kind of lead to better work environments for everybody if they will go out and actually practice them.
I agree with all y'all's points as well. I think it's good to listen to podcasts to be able to relate to people and their ways of leadership, but also, like y'all said, learning different aspects of leadership in different ways that could be more effective than the ways that you're using right now. Just overall, it's beneficial to be able to relate or to change your ways or just feel like you're in it with other people.
And that's all the questions, correct?
Yes, that is.
Awesome.
Okay, awesome.
That was